Hello and welcome to part 8 of Ranking the Demons List. This is the series where I rank the Demons List. At this point it should be really self-explanatory and I'm not going to drag this intro out too long. However, if you're new to the series and you want to see the rest of the parts before this one, all of them will be in a playlist that is linked in the description. I highly recommend catching up before watching part 8. One really cool update I have for the series before we continue, though, is I can now use my own showcases. I have figured out how to showcase levels in a very high quality state, and I can showcase basically anything. I've actually gotten Peaceful to run. So, from now on, I won't be using showcase channels like Nexus or FNMO4 or just GD Player. I'll be creating my own footage. So, all the footage you see in this video, and for the rest of the series, will be mine. We've got an interesting batch of levels this episode, and honestly, there's some levels that I'm really excited to review. This is going to be a very interesting episode. I've been very excited to record it, so let's just jump right into the reviews. So, first up, we have Frozen Cave. Yeah, we have another generic hell level. What do you mean it doesn't look like a hell level to you? Didn't you get the memo? Hell froze over. Jokes aside, Frozen Cave is a really solid ice-themed level. There's a lot of really cool choices made with the deco here, and I obviously can't gauge whether or not the gameplay is fun, because I have no idea. I can at least say the gameplay is really creative with the ship part where you have to touch all the trigger orbs and avoid the jump rings. It's just a really interesting idea. Some of the choices made with the deco is honestly pretty cool. In the avalanche part that I mentioned earlier with the trigger orbs, to animate the smoke that comes off of the snow as it falls, they used fire objects. Yeah, they managed to use fire objects and make it not look like fire. That is really cool. The level utilizes the song really well, and while its sync isn't exactly executed flawlessly, it does have some pretty good moments of sync here and there. But what really blows me away about Frozen Cave is just how polished the deco looks. You could tell me this was from a different game, and I'd probably believe you. Overall, I really like Frozen Cave. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. Next up, we have Plasma Pulse Finale, and this is another one of those ones that's really hard to review. A lot of people remember Plasma Pulse Finale not for the level itself, but for the battle of what's harder, Plasma Pulse Finale or Bloodlust, which, considering how far apart they are on the list now, that's kind of funny that that was a debate at one point. I feel that does sum up PPF's legacy. The fact that people remember it not for the level itself, but the fact it was being compared to Bloodlust. It literally needed another level's legacy just to be remembered. As for the level itself, again, it's not horrible, it's just kinda generic and not great looking. I mean, it's not bad looking, but it's not interesting either. Though there is one thing I gotta criticize this level for. The hitboxes in this level are confusingly bad. There's a lot of hitboxes that are invisible, and they protrude out of block designs, and they require you to do some weird stuff. Like, for example, there's this part where you're the mini-wave, and you're dropping down into a cube portal, and it looks like you can just kind of sweep up, and you would be fine, but there's a little hitbox on the edge of the hill, so you actually have to do a small little movement with the wave to gain a little bit of extra momentum forward, and you don't hit it. It's hard to explain. I'm obviously going to show stuff on screen so you get an idea of what I'm talking about, but the point is, there's just bad hitboxes like this all over the place. I don't get why the hitboxes in this level were so messed up, but they really were. And yeah, I mean, that's all I really have to say about PPF. It's a generic level with bad hitboxes. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. So next up we have Chroma Finale. Chroma Finale is a pretty cool wave-focused level. It's nice and fast-paced and really intense, and it uses the song really well. The effects throughout the level are really good, and, I mean, overall there isn't a lot to say. It's just a pretty solid level. My big complaint is that the level suffers from stagnation. Basically, it's one of those levels where you could look at one tiny part and you get an idea of what the whole level is like, which is, you know, not always the best. Now, I'm not going to talk about this too much as I don't want to spoil a future review in the series, but the Chroma levels are basically all the same, like to a annoying degree. These levels are the exact same. There's 3 of them, and it can be genuinely hard to tell these levels apart, and the only reason I bring that up here is because these levels, with their stagnation, this is the final level in the series, so I'm taking that into account. So I'm going to give Chroma Finale a 7. So next up we have SZYSLAK, and this level is genuinely really well made, like to a shocking degree. Not only does it look pretty good, but the gameplay in this level is genuinely creative. Now again, as I always say whenever I talk about gameplay in a level, I'm not good enough to play these levels, so I don't know if it's fun or not, but at the very least, this is some of the most creative gameplay I've ever seen. There's some really interesting use of double clicks in this level, and one of my personal favorites is actually in this wave when you have to double click a blue orb to go up. I think that's really interesting, and in general there's just a lot of really cool and creative moves taken with the gameplay here. There is this dual wave in the pre-drop that looks sick, and just in general there's a lot of really cool stuff here. My only complaint is that in the pre-drop the level makes use of fixed hitboxes for dash orbs, which I'm never going to be a fan of fixed hitboxes. Look, if you want to do fixed hitboxes, at least do a visual indicator that they're there to assist the player. Like, these spikes look no different than any other spike in the level, unless you have hitboxes on. That is irritating. That's really my only complaint, however. This level is just genuinely solid. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. Next up we have Calamity, and I'm not gonna lie, this level fails to impress me in every way, shape, and form. Now, I will give this level a couple points on this. It was made in the 1.9 private server, and for that private server standards, it's actually pretty alright. I think it does what it needs to do, but I'm not judging this off of being a 1.9 private server level. I'm judging this off of what's possible on the main game servers, and you know, this might be a hot take, but I think if you set an arbitrary restriction to your level and that restriction ends up hindering the level's quality, it's still a flaw with the level's quality. This is an opinion I've started to have for a long time. It mainly started to bloom whenever I saw Cherry Team's level Cherry Blossom, which is a really bad level, and it should not have had the 1-day restriction. Just seems like a bad move. But that all out of the way, Calamity's block design is very subpar and just not that great. The color usage is pretty cool here, and the gameplay is pretty creative, but those aren't things that can save it, in my opinion, because, my god, this is the most bare-bones, simple-looking 1.9 level I've ever seen. The end screen looks pretty cool. I just wish this kind of quality could have been kept up throughout the level. I don't know if they were limiting themselves to the 1.9 object limit or not, but yeah. I actually did just check, and it is sub 50k objects, which I think is actually kind of neat, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna praise this level a little bit for the stupidly low object count, but unlike a level like Cognition, it doesn't hold its own with that low of an object count, because they didn't do anything creative with the deco, and I mean, like, whenever I praise a level like Cognition for having a low object count, my praise is that it looks good while having a low amount of objects. This just looks bare bones. If you think I'm being too hard on this level, I don't feel that I am, because there are levels off of the 1.9 private server that look significantly better than this. Project Reunion, which was also hosted by Grenade of Tacos, looks significantly better than this. Hell, there were levels that were actually made back in 1.9 that look better than this. I will say, I do like some things about this level. I like how it uses the song. I think the level's alright. It doesn't stick out as anything special to me. I'm going to give this level a 6 out of 10. Next up we have Spectrum Cyclone, and I find this level to be very forgettable. The gameplay is a little bit unique, albeit it's probably not a gameplay style I'd find very fun. Just personal preference. I'm not saying the gameplay's bad, I just personally wouldn't like it. But the deco is actually pretty alright. It does have a very 2.0, early 2.1 feel, like sort of that transitional era. I don't know when this level actually came out, but that's just the feel it gives me. Obviously it's got like Spider and stuff, so it is 2.1, but it has that older charm to it. The deco is a little bare bones, to be fair. I think the block design could have used some work, and I think the backgrounds are a little too detailed at some points. But for the most part, this level is pretty solid. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Next up we have Sand Sailor, and I am blown away by this level. This is the kind of stuff I want to see more of on the list. Just really creative and unique deco that isn't experimented with that much. This level is a treat to look at. The level has this wavy, almost hallucinogenic look to it that's really, really hard to describe. It really kind of makes me think of, like, 70s peace rally visuals. I don't really know how to describe it, but, like, I'll put examples of it on screen, but you usually saw it a lot on, like, shirts and stuff. The level syncs with the music pretty much flawlessly, and it manages to look really insane while doing so. It manages to be insanely intimidating due to the way it uses the song, and my god, some of the effects in the level. One thing in particular that really blew my mind was this hand where your cube is the hand's eye as it's rotating. That was really sick. Also, somehow this amazing level manages to have the shockingly low object count of 55,900. It is below 80k. This is not a level I expected to be able to say that about. There is so much good about this level, from song choice to song utilization to deco to theming to atmosphere to the fact that it actually manages to be insanely intimidating. This level is just amazing the whole way through. If I had to nitpick, I guess I could say that the second time the hand appears feels a little bit excessive, because after the first time, the second one it looks a little bit more stilted, and on top of that, your icon isn't the eye anymore, so it just doesn't look as good. I think the hand appearing one time would have been enough, but at the same time, I don't mind it being here anyway. It's a nitpick, it doesn't really matter. But overall, this level is genuinely god tier. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. So next up we have Fragmented, and this review is going to end up being very similar to the Calamity review in the sense of it's a 1.9 level that fails to stick out in my opinion. I don't know if this one was made on the 1.9 private server. I think it was. I'm like 75% certain that it was, but there's still a chance that I was wrong. And if it's not, well, you know. But either way, Fragmented just has that generic 1.9 feel to it, and I'm not a big fan. The level's song is a really good choice, being a song by Far Too Loud, which is an artist that I highly recommend. They're very underrated in the grand scheme of things. I want to praise this level for the song choice alone. This is a really good song. I will say, however, and this is the first time I've complained about something like this in the series, I hate that the replacement song is Get Smooshed. That is the song from Super Probably level. And what I just said there is frustrating. I gotta say, in general, I hate when levels have really bad replacement songs, like Aerial Gleams is Jawbreaker, which is really annoying when you go to play Jawbreaker and you have the replacement song. Killbot's replacement is Sweet Dreams by Ruckus, which is the Crimson Clutter song, and I'm gonna add this to the collection of terrible nongs. Why would you use the Super Probably level song as your replacement? It doesn't even fit with the level. I'm getting deja vu from when I just reviewed Calamity, but this level can be praised on the basis of its object count. I don't know if it was going off the 1.9 limitations, but even if it isn't, I'm just going to say that this level manages to be under 40k objects, sitting at 34,860, which, as I've said in this series before, I really value low object counts. Overall, I'm just not a very big fan of this song, and in general, it feels like a very big waste because I really like Far Too Loud, and I'd like to see a really good level using a song by them. Like, maybe someone could make a good level using Drop the Bomb or something like that. But, I don't know, this just ended up being really disappointing because I saw that this level's Nong was a Far Too Loud song, and it ended up being a generic 1.9 level with nothing going for it. I'm going to rank this level a 4 out of 10. Next up we have Aquatic Auroras, and I'm not a big fan of this level. I think it's very mid. I think the block design in the post-drop and the pre-drop looks pretty good, but during the wave section, it's just not that good at all. The pulsing is a very muted color, and I don't think it looks good at all, and on top of that, the block design is stupidly basic. But what kills it for me is the fact that they tried to put these little, like, rainbow rocks in the level, and I think they're supposed to be like the kind of rainbow rocks you would see inside of an aquarium, which means at least the level's theming is okay, but the rocks clash with the block deco and the pulsing, especially considering how mute the color of the pulsing actually is, and it just overall gives a very clashing, distracting, and ugly look. Oh, and not to mention, the level has more time in the wave where the rocks aren't there than when they are, so when they do show up, they stick out like a sore thumb. I've never really been a fan of this wave's deco at all, and I don't know, it just doesn't look that good. For a Circles level, this could have been a lot better. I'm going to give the level a 5 out of 10. This is a big one. Next up we have Storming Summit, and this is a huge level. And I mean that literally. This level is like 400k objects. It's massive. However, this is probably the one time I will understand a level having a massive object count like this, because this level is basically one giant reference to Celeste. It recreates most of the game and does so in a very elegant way. It's to the point where, keep in mind, the song is not a nong, however, there is a version you can use that is a nong that adds all the sound effects from the game in, so if you do stuff like go through the gel, or hit a certain enemy, or a certain enemy attack happens, it'll play their sound effect and sync it up with the level, which is really cool and a really nice addition. There's a lot of really cool attention to detail and just really good attempts at porting Celeste's really interesting gameplay over to GD. Like, any of the alternate coin routes, specifically the first one, they have this glow, and this glow is actually in Celeste, because if there's an area off-screen you can go into, it's usually marked with this glow. It's a good way for the game to indicate that you can drop down somewhere without falling to your death. I like that the coins are designed to look like the strawberries from Celeste. I love everything about this level. It's designed so well. Whoever made this level really cares about Celeste and really wanted this to come out well, and it succeeded, because this is probably the best a Celeste level could have been in GD. My only complaint is basically just that the level is as fast-paced as it is, and I get why the Celeste level would be a fast-paced level. It's because Celeste as a game is basically designed for speedrunners, to the point where it's got a speedrun clock in-game, so it makes sense that the level's super fast. But it is a little disappointing, because I find that some of the best things you can do in Celeste is to just take a step back, stop playing, and just look at the scenery. Celeste is a very beautiful and breathtaking game, and this level captures it well, but I find there isn't a lot of time for the player to stop and just take a breath and look at how beautiful this level looks. It's definitely a level that's better watched than played, but I've also heard that the gameplay's fun, so I don't know. All things considered, it is genuinely mind-blowing that this level is as good as it is, and so I'm gonna give Storming Summit a 10 out of 10. And with that, we finished with our main 10 levels, but of course we have bonus entries. It's a lot of bonus entries. This might be the longest episode in the series, because a lot has been placed since the last episode, so I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's get straight into the bonus entries. Next up we have Ourwa, I don't know exactly how to say this. This is another generic 2.1 level, nothing really standing out, but I'm kind of shocked this level is as not good as it is, considering it was made by the creator of Kyuki. It's not a lot stands out, and the stuff that does stand out is okay, but it's so few and far in between, and usually it's just, wow, they got that to work. Like, there's this part where they managed to use the connected texture rock 2.1 deco blocks, the ones you see in Finger Dash, and they actually made them look really good, which is shocking. But then you get stuff like the Ourwa logo, which looks like it was written using the swipe tool and a pixel block. It's, interesting. But for the most part, the level just kind of has that generic 2.1 feel. There isn't a lot to stick out to it, and to some extent, it kind of looks unpolished, which is not something I thought I'd say about a Demisho level. I'm not a big fan. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. Next up, we have Dump, and this level looks like garbage. Literally, it's landfill-themed. Jokes aside, I'm a really big fan of the theming and the way the deco is executed. This level's actually shockingly really good. The basic theme of the level is that you're in, like, a dump, you know, hence the level's name, and in it you can just see a bunch of random memorabilia from different things, just references to everything, really. Like, there's a part where you can see Snoopy sitting on top of the barn thing. I'm just never really big on Peanuts, but basically, yeah, you can see Snoopy just flying around. There's another part where you can see Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated just chilling in the background. And there's just a bunch of references like this all over the level, and it's literally just a landfill level, so it's just an excuse for the creator to fill it to the brim with references, which is actually kinda cool. The gameplay in this level is really cool and creative. I don't necessarily know if it's fun, but at the very least it's very interesting and very creative. A lot of things in this level stuck out to me, like, I don't know how to explain it, but there's this glitch where if you go up to a ceiling that should kill you if you jump into it, sometimes depending on if you design your level a certain way, you can kind of like bounce into it a couple frames and then you'll die, and you can use this to gain a little bit of momentum. And it's actually one of those things that's like really hard to describe, but this level uses that glitch as a gameplay mechanic, which I think is really neat. I imagine this level is hard. And I mean, like, really hard. Not even necessarily to play, just to learn. And I say this because this is one of the very rare times botting a level where I actually had to consult the verification video to know what I was supposed to do. It's genuinely a hard level to figure out, and I kind of like it for that because it's a very outside-of-the-box level. Thematically, this confusing and almost cluttered gameplay fits really well, because it's almost like the gameplay is also being found in a dump, and I think that the execution of the gameplay in terms of the theming is really neat. If I had to nitpick and complain about anything, the level has a Nong, and the Nong happens to be a song by Kiro Benito, an artist I am not a very big fan of. I am just not a big fan of their voice or their music, and yeah, I mean, I respect them, but I don't really like their music, and so I don't like the level's song choice, but I'm not going to factor that into my score. That's just personal bias. And with that all being said, I'm going to give this level a 10. It's just breathing with life and creativity, which is shocking for a level that's literally garbage-themed. Next up we have Twilight, which is kind of hard to describe thematically. It's kind of like a neon LED forest type aesthetic, and it's really cool. The flashing lights and the color usage is really well executed. The atmosphere, in terms of the way the level uses the song to be intimidating, is really, really well done. And in general, there's just a lot of cool stuff here. I like the little blue jump pad trees that appear like a quarter of the way into the level, and in general, this level is just really cool. I don't have too much more to say, it's just very solid. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Next up we have Atomic Cannon, and I already forgot what's in the level. I literally just watched the video. God, this level's forgettable. Okay, I think the level's alright. It has some really interesting music sync, but oh my god, it's forgettable. I do like some things about it, like the way these spikes flash, but aside of that, it's just nothing special. I'm gonna give Atomic Cannon a 5 out of 10. Next up we have Widestep, which actually has a lot in common with Sidestep. Another level made by the creator of Kiyuki, except unlike last time, I'm not disappointed. This level's actually genuinely good. Something about the way this level flows and uses the song is just really satisfying. Again, oddly enough, it's very comparable to Sidestep in regards to what makes it good. I don't know, it's just a better version of Sidestep. It's, you know, on the Demons list, so it's way harder than Sidestep, but it really does just feel like if someone took Sidestep, made it harder, and made it better. I don't know, it's a cool level. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Next up we have Lumina. This level is everything I wanted Congregation to be and more. I don't think this is a sequel to Congregation or anything, I'm pretty sure it's just its own level, but progression-wise it's very similar to Congregation, in which it starts off with minimal to no background deco with very simple block deco, but the farther in you get, the more chaotic it gets. Unlike Congregation, it evolves to the point where the level is really fleshed out and genuinely really interesting, and the beginning doesn't dwell on super long, so it's not stupidly boring. The level has a mostly yellow color scheme until we get to the drop where it becomes a mostly white and gray color scheme, and then it evolves to add this sort of spiral effect, which looks genuinely really good. The way Lumina sets itself up and the way it handles its execution is just beautifully done. I think this level is really solid. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So next up we have Terminal Rampancy, and I think this is a very beautiful... I forgot to turn my fan off. Cox! I think this is a very beautiful level. The decoration is stellar, the music sync and the usage of the song is really good. I wanted to give this level a good score, but here's the thing. This level looks too good, in the Sonic Wave Infinity kind of way, where it feels a little too high detailed to where it wouldn't have hurt to remove some of the detail. And the reason I bring that up is because this level has 334,665 objects. Now look, this level, like I said, looks really, really good, and it uses the song really well, but to some extent, I think this level is a little bit too over-decorated, because most people aren't going to be able to see this deco, and honestly, it's not even worth it in my opinion. Like, you will not be able to run this level on high detail unless you have like a god PC. Still, I really like this level, but I can't give it a 10 due to that, unfortunately, so I think I'm going to just be fair and give the level a 9 out of 10. Next up we have Solar Flare, which, it's a Circles level. I gotta be honest, I don't see much special in this level, it's just okay to me. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, like, I'm gonna give it a pretty high score, but I don't know, it just doesn't stick out that much to me. I do like the theming, I like the block design, I think the way the level uses the song is pretty cool, but I don't know, it doesn't really have that distinct of a Circles effect in it, and on top of that, like, just, I don't know, it just doesn't stick out to me as anything. Later on in the level, there's this little sun thing that appears with a face on it, and according to the GD community, its name is Janet. And Janet has been scale hacked to hell, and so its texture is literally pixelated due to it being stretched out so bad. I don't think this level's bad. Like I said, I think it's fine, it just doesn't stick out to me as anything special. Ironically, I think I feel the same way about it as I feel about Aerial Gleam, which is also a good level, so I don't know. I'm gonna give the level a 9 out of 10. Next up we have Saul Goodman, which is yet another level in the Breaking Bad series. Literally everything I've said about every other level in the series applies here, but this is the final level in the series, and it still feels derivative. These levels have nothing going for them, and with every entry, I hate the series more and more. I'm giving this level a 4 out of 10. It's got some interesting use of music, but its deco is actually lame compared to the rest of the series, and overall this series is just getting boring. Next up we have Kocmoc, and this level might be one of the best things on the list. Personally, this is my favorite list demon, and it will be for a long time. I love how good the level looks, I love how smooth the optimization is. Originally the level released in a very unoptimized and unplayable state, but now the level's actually pretty fixed and fine. I'm not a big fan of the fact the level did like this release then fix thing, but I mean, the level's in a good state now, so it's kind of fine. This level is just so visually stimulating. Every frame of this level is just enjoyable in its own right. I don't know why I love this level so much, but I do. And let's talk about the elephant in the room. The level's a Slaughterhouse remake, but I don't mind, because everyone has said that this level's fun. In fact, I'm gonna go so far as saying that Slaughterhouse's issue isn't its gameplay. Gameplay like that can be fun. Slaughterhouse's issue is that it takes gameplay like that and makes it so hard that it can't be fun. But because Kocmoc was nerfed to be fun, it, shocker, ended up being a fun level. For being a Slaughterhouse remake, this level ended up being way better than it had any right to, and I genuinely think these might be some of the most mind-blowing visuals we have in the game. My only complaint is that the hitboxes in the level are pretty misleading, some of them being stupidly lenient, others being way stricter than they look, but that's usually just a learning curve that you can get around, but still, not the most ideal thing. Everything about this level will always blow my mind, and I think this is probably the most obvious and deserved 10 out of 10 in the series. And with that, we have finally finished Ranking the Demons List Part 8. Now, this episode took a while to put out for various reasons, mostly which are my fault, but this episode has been in production hell for a while. There are a couple things that set this episode's release back a while. The first was a lot of levels had gotten verified en masse. Solar Flare, Saul Goodman, Kocmoc, just all of these levels, and there was a brief period where they were rated, but they were not placed on the list, and I wanted to wait until all these levels got placed. What I didn't expect is that a bunch of other levels would also get placed that I hadn't heard of, and I definitely didn't expect to have 11 bonus entries by the time that the wait was over. Shockingly, despite the insane amount of reviews, I don't think this episode's going to be that long in the grand scheme of things. I think it'll fit fine with the rest of the series from how it seems so far. I mean, I just checked my files, and it's only 29 minutes long so far, so that's kind of shocking. But there is another thing that pushed this back, and it's I'm now recording my own showcase videos, so you'll probably notice that this is the first episode in the series where I'm using my own showcases, and I'm not using, like, Jagdp or FNMO4 or XN or any of those people. I am using my own showcases, and it's not because I have anything against them, it's more so just I found a way to make really high-quality showcases. I can showcase Peaceful in perfect quality. And so what I've been doing is I made a showcase channel, which, you know, that's linked on my website. My website is always linked in the description. I made a showcase channel, and up until I've released this episode, I have been uploading every single list demon up to where we are in the series. So I just uploaded Kocmoc as of recording this. What's interesting about that is if you want to keep up with where I am in the production of an episode of Ranking the Demons List, you can go sub to my showcase channel, because I'll be uploading the showcases as I record the reviews, so it's kind of like real-time interaction. You get to see the level as I'm recording it, even though obviously you won't hear that recording till, like, much later. You get what I mean. This episode was definitely very mixed for me, in the sense of, like, some of the levels, like Storming Summit, were genuinely breathtaking to review. Honestly, there are some reviews in here where I don't think I did the level justice, whether it good or bad, because, like, there are not enough things you can say to praise a level like Storming Summit or Kocmoc. Like, these levels are just good to the point where all I can really say is go and watch them, go appreciate them, you know what I mean? Like, these levels deserve a lot more attention. What really struck me as shocking this time around was just how many levels have been placed, like, recently, but the placed levels no one's talking about. Like, not a lot of people have talked about levels like Dump or Terminal Rampancy or Widestep or Lumina. These levels have gone completely under the radar, which is kind of shocking, and most of the list placements recently have gone completely unnoticed. But yeah, those are all of the sort of thoughts that I have at the end of this episode. I like doing these sort of discussions at the end of each episode because it gives you an idea of where my head is at through the series, because you can kind of look back and see how my feelings change about the list over time. I mean, I remember back in, like, part 5, I think? I said something along the lines of, like, the list was going to get really boring until we got to a certain point, and then literally the next episode, the list ended up being fun. And I don't know, I just think there's something really amusing about being able to hear that at the end of each episode. But anyway, I've been rambling on at the end of this episode more so than I usually do, so I'm just gonna start ending the video here, and I guess if you, like, as I said at the beginning, if you want to catch up on the series, I will have a playlist in the description with every single episode in the playlist so you can watch from the beginning. I highly recommend it because the first and second episode go way more into how the series works if you don't know how I'm doing this. I would also really appreciate it if maybe you'd subscribe and comment and all that stuff. Interaction reminder stuff as always. Though, on the commenting end of things, I do want to say, I genuinely do encourage people to comment and give their opinions on levels and just their thoughts, because I like seeing opposing opinions. It's fun. That all out of the way, though, I'm going to end this episode here. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.